I think the number one thing any founder needs, and it's something that we seek out in selection, is grit. And grit is quite literally the confluence of passion and determination. And they talk about this a lot in like podcasts and books that you read, but it's really hard to tangibly see that in someone, but you can see it in like, it's, we overuse the word hustle, but it's really true. Like you can see it in how much someone is willing to really hit the ground running and execute on their business if they have no resources. And oftentimes I've seen businesses that come or they'll pitch at competitions and they'll talk about all the awards that they've won and that I've done this, and they're very articulate. But the entrepreneurs that really impress me are the ones where their Urdu is better than their English, but they hustle, they get things done. When you talk to them a couple months later, they not only took all the criticism that you said, but they made themselves better as a result of that. That to me is like something that you can teach, but not really. It's kind of something that's innate in you. And I think oftentimes, one of the things that we do wrong is we glamorize entrepreneurship everywhere in the world, right? We talk about Steve Jobs as this, almost like this person that's, in this black turtleneck without actually, talking about all the stuff he went through, being fired from Apple, coming back, like all of those things were what made him, that type of grit that he showcased was the reason he was Steve Jobs. And it's really talking more about the journey than the end. Everything that we do is about vulnerability. It's about connecting with each other, connecting with yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you as an entrepreneur are not a strong leader, if you don't have an emotional intelligence, if you're not connected to your cause, you are not going to be successful in the long term in what you're trying to build. We've graduated 35 companies that have gone on to raise almost $6 million, but 86% of that has been by our female-led companies, right? And so these are not numbers that are surprising or should surprise anyone, and yet when I say it, people are always surprised to hear that. People always try to put me in the box of being like, you're a woman, you're a female entrepreneur, and at the end of the day, I'm just an entrepreneur. And I just happen to be a woman, and I happen to be this, right? But I'm not defined by those lenses that other people decide to project on me, and I think what's really important is that when we give a space to women to be able to compete with men, as we've seen with our numbers, those women perform better, right? And I think sometimes we're so concerned with creating female-only spaces or female this or female that we're not actually saying like, what are we doing to actually really genuinely design for inclusion, to allow for parity to exist? What are we doing to not only encourage more female leadership, but what are we doing to also empower men as allies in this space, because they can amplify the voices that I think are really important. I'm kind of a third culture kid, so I was born in Dubai and my mom is from Bangladesh. I spent my childhood in Dhaka. I went to the American school there, so I have an American accent because I went to American schools abroad. Did my most formative middle and high school in Islamabad. Went to the US for university and graduate school. I think for a lot of us that I think are working in this space now, there's obviously a lot of love we have for this country, which is why we stick it out for so long, to be honest. But I think at the time I just was so excited by how many young people that I was meeting on a regular basis that had incredible ideas to affect change. And then when I would talk to those people 3-4 months later, nothing had happened. As I started working with companies here in Pakistan, you realize that so many of the businesses face the same problems. And a lot of them don't interact with each other. So that's really when we decided to launch our Eye Accelerator program. So the Startup Accelerator program that we launched in 2012 was almost a solution to that issue, was that how do we, it's impossible to scale a consulting model, and especially because startups can't, pay for services. And also these problems are all the same, and then they're not interacting with each other. So a program actually really helps create that community and allows you to address 10 companies at once rather than one company, and then be able to scale from there. I would love to see more accountability. I think a lot of times there's a lot of people that talk a lot in the space, and there's a lot of hot air, a lot of people that are saying that they're doing a lot of things. At the end of the day, the only way that we really have as a success indicator for Pakistan is if we see exits from the market, right? If we see real success stories come out of a place like Pakistan, that is the biggest success. It's the wrong question when people ask me, where are the exits for Pakistan? Because that will happen, but at the end of the day, that what needs to happen is a lot of different things, right? That is an ecosystem approach, is saying that we're not just addressing this one one problem. There's a multitude of problems that need to happen. I think the issue is that if we continue to say that there are no exit opportunities, don't invest in funds, then you're not actually creating the opportunities to create an exit in the market in the first place, right? Because we need to invest in companies to allow for then the follow-on rounds to happen, to allow for then growth to happen, to create the opportunity for an exit in the future. It's not about anything else but how much value do we provide entrepreneurs, right? So even from an investor perspective, if you are an investor taking a majority stake in a company and making those founders employees, how are we actually allowing for follow-on financing and Series A, Series B rounds to happen if we've already disempowered the company from the get-go? If you're an incubator and accelerator, if you're not actually providing value to these companies, then what are we doing? I really hate seeing good companies die because they've taken bad money. And that's one big reason we decided, we actually have a really deep understanding of the market and really a good understanding of entrepreneurs. We should be able to put our hat in the ring and say that, not saying that necessarily we hope will be a success, but we need to not, complain about bad players and just complain about it. We need to actually be able to lead through being a good investor. So we've created almost this mythological sense that you can be young and create the next big thing, but they're definitely in the minority. So it's not saying that we shouldn't be encouraging young people, because that is really important. But the likelihood of that their first business out the gate, especially in a market that's so difficult in Pakistan, being that billion-dollar unicorn from Pakistan is not likely. But maybe their second or third businesses, right? So if we don't encourage them at this level, then how are they going to get to the point where their second or third business is something else? I think one thing that's been really cool that I've seen is that so many people who are launching businesses, so like Ahmed Khan from Cheetah, right? He was at, leading up Daraz, Kemu, he was at Rocket Internet. We've seen so many people that have come out, have been trained at Rocket, that have gone on to launch really great businesses. So many people that have been at Artisoft, that Yasser Bashir, I mean, he's such a great, empowering CEO. So many people have gone on to start their own things. So there's something to be said of like these young people that are going to work at these companies that are creating a type of culture and that being a training in of itself, right, of going on and do something. So I think you have to encourage everything at this point. I don't think that we need to be, exclusive to saying we can only support older founders or whatever. There's definitely something to be said about that, just as much as there is to be said of like young kids and how we're mentoring and supporting them.